two little quick stories, and then I'm going to take questions. When I got the call from David Courier, who was a senior programmer for Sundance the Monday before Thanksgiving, I was, of course, blown away. And he said to me, he says, "You do know, Susan, that everyone in our office is checking their employment contracts to see if they have a mandatory arbitration." And then he said, "And we do." And I said, "Well, that's funny, David, because I had to sign one to enter this festival," which I didn't want to do. And I called my producer and I said, "I'm not going to sign this." She goes, "Sign the damn thing." You know, the thing is that when you get an application online, you know, you have to check off, you know, do you agree to these terms before you can even do anything? And if you don't check yes, you can't submit it. And almost all of them have mandatory arbitration clauses. In Florida now, you can't get medical care in a hospital unless you sign a consent form that has a mandatory arbitration clause. And there's nothing wrong with arbitration if it's voluntary and if it's fair, where there are both sides that get to pick the decision maker. It's the mandatory arbitration clause that we have trouble with. So anyway, opening up for questions. Yes, way in the back there.
I have two quick questions. First of all, and this may sound kind of simplistic, who in the American legal system publishes standards for determining what constitutes a frivolous lawsuit?
Okay, so what is a frivolous lawsuit to you? I mean, because I bet you if I ask everybody here, you'll have a different definition. Because it's never your case that's frivolous, it's always that person's case that's frivolous, right? You know, there are no standards like that. There are checks and balances in our system already. Most of the time, people who bring frivolous lawsuits don't have a lawyer, because lawyers who do this kind of work only get paid if they win. And they're not going to take a lot of frivolous lawsuits because they have to put out a lot of money, and insurance companies are not throwing money at frivolous lawsuits, believe me. There are frivolous lawsuits that are filed from businesses to businesses. And there are also systems in place that when people file a frivolous lawsuit, that they actually there are ethical rules, or they can get fined for doing that. So lawyers tend to be the gatekeepers of this. We don't always hear that. We hear too many frivolous lawsuits, greedy trial lawyers, jackpot justice. Those were market-tested phrases. We had a lot of footage that we didn't put in here, we just couldn't fit everything in here. But there's a guy named Frank Luntz, and he literally does focus groups around these phrases. He came up with the term death tax instead of estate tax because he wanted to infuriate people. That's the kind of thing. So I don't know if that answered your question, but...
the second one was,
yes.
I anticipated that answer, so I just want to know what your experience is, the number of frivolous lawsuits that you've seen personally.
I haven't seen very many frivolous lawsuits as an attorney. You know, does that mean there aren't any? Of course there are. But they aren't always brought by lawyers. So the other day I was watching a television commercial, and they were talking about a woman who was texting in a mall, and then she tripped and she fell. Did you see all that? Did anybody ever ask her if there was ever a lawsuit filed? Was there ever a lawyer? What happened? No, they just assumed that it was a frivolous lawsuit, even though it had just happened. She hadn't filed anything. So, you know, it's a perpetuation. It's more of the propaganda and the millions of dollars that's been spent in a public relations campaign to convince all of us that we need to reform our system. Who benefits from that? Corporations. Because if we can't access the courts, then corporations make more money. Other questions? Yes, back here. You, yes.
Yes. So obviously this was very pro-plaintiff. As a movie, I just wanted to kind of get your opinion on SLAPP lawsuits, strategic lawsuits against public participation, I think.
Why don't you explain to people what that really means?
Yeah, so that's, I mean, I'll frame it in a very biased way that will get you very angry. That would be a blogger posts some information that a business is not happy about that information being available, so the business will press a lawsuit in order to basically suppress the information. And that can be done in a number of ways, but that's kind of the long and short of it. And I just kind of wanted to get your opinions on how you feel about those. And there are kind of there's some push toward reform in that direction, and kind of what you feel about that.
You know, I didn't really do a lot of research on that. I didn't cover that in the film. I don't really feel comfortable responding to that, to be honest. I mean, I think that those are intimidation factors to prevent people from filing lawsuits. But I don't really have a whole lot of comments on that. I actually, you know, I usually start the Q&A by asking, will the representative from the U.S. Chamber of Commerce please raise his hand? I'm always assuming that they're here or that they're monitoring this because, you know, we've been getting a lot of really positive press, and you're right, you know, this is a plaintiff's perspective. That's what I was. I was a plaintiff's trial lawyer, and I'm not ashamed of it. We've heard for 25 years one side of the story. And in order for us as an American public, as people to vote, to sit on juries, to really be able to have an opinion, we have to hear both sides of the story, just the way a jury does. And then we can all evaluate it. I tell people all the time, I'm not trying to change your minds. Not everybody's going to agree with me. I just want to open people's minds so that we can start a debate that's a real debate based on both sides of the story and not just one.
To get educated, so I thank everybody on stage for doing that.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You basically have two films going on here. The TNA film, Spartan,
What's the A?
arbitration.
Okay.
I want to throw out a solution, and I want you to comment on it, both as a filmmaker and as a lawyer. What if instead of corporations, instead of giving this huge lump sum that's considered a jackpot, there was actual costs that the family incurred over the life of that person? However, you know, it could be 8 million, it could be 10. He might die at the age of 15, but that way it's neither a jackpot nor is it a lump sum. I mean, a cap limit. That's what I mean.
I think that's a great idea. Unfortunately, most people want things to end when they end, and they don't want it to be like open-ended, particularly insurance companies. You know, they put out reserves at the beginning of a case saying how much money they think they're going to eventually have to spend out. They don't want that left open-ended for the rest of the person's life. But, you know, I mean, suggest it to your legislator. Just one thing before I was thinking about it. How many people saw President Obama today in this film say he opposes caps and who heard the State of the Union address the other day? So I was giving an interview yesterday and I said, you know, President Obama really needs to see this film, and hopefully he will, because, you know, this is happening right now, everybody. And, you know, only we can do anything about it. So please contact your congresspeople. You know, stop signing mandatory arbitration clauses. I tell people, I have a friend in Chicago, and whenever he sees a mandatory arbitration clause, instead of signing his name, he writes no effing way. It's like, yeah, right over here. Yeah, the green, the woman, yeah.
Okay, so I've always been kind of that same person who, when I see one, I bring it up. I've actually not seen doctors when I really, really needed to, and I've always said I'm not willing to work with people who are not willing to be judged by a jury of their peers. So, well, thank you. But when you say in here that they're doing this in credit card agreements and different things after the fact, I had never considered that at all. So is there a way to find out, to kind of call your credit card agencies, to whatever, and find out who you currently have agreements with?
You know, you can, but unfortunately in most of those situations, it doesn't matter because you don't have a choice. You know, if you use your credit card, if you use your cell phone, you have agreed. Right. So that's why we have to stop these things from being in employment contracts, being in these contracts, and the first step is for all of us to even know they're there. You know, how many of you didn't even know that this was happening? That didn't even, most of us. You know, people just, and we first have to know what's happening, and then we have to stand up as a group of people and say no. You know, most of the time, if it's a written contract, if you just cross it out and put your initials, you know, the person who's handing it to you doesn't have a clue what it is. You know, but you can't always get away with that. But we have to start doing something to say, no, we're not going to have this happen to us. Yes, down here. Either one of you, whoever, fight over it.
And it's not really about the law, it's more about your personal experience in making this film, because you obviously have quite a background as a trial lawyer, but maybe not so much as a filmmaker, and I just wondered what that was like for you to come from, it seems like a very different field of endeavor.
Thank you for asking that. You're the first person in all the Q&As who has asked me anything about the filmmaking. Everybody has always wanted to talk to me about the issues, so thank you. This is my first film. And, you know, people ask me, well, how did you learn how to do this? You know, I didn't go to film school, but I did try cases in front of people. And I had to tell stories through witnesses and use exhibits. And I just took that skill and I put it in a different in a different format. So I don't want to say it was work because it was so much fun. And it was a lot, it took, there was a lot of time and a lot of effort, and, we worked a long time. But I had the story. I knew what I wanted to say, and I knew what it would look like, and it was great. It beats the hell out of practicing law. Yeah. Yes, back there.
So what's next?
Well, I do have another film in my head. Haven't told too many people about it, so I'm not going to spill the beans right here. But I do hope, I took a sabbatical from my practice. I thought it was going to be 1 year. I did go back to practicing part-time the beginning of this year, and it just wasn't happening because I could not be in 2 places at one time. I couldn't represent my clients the way I wanted to represent them and also finish this film. And I had made a commitment to finish this film and do the best job I could. So I started to go back on sabbatical, and then my firm said, well, we need to know when you're coming back. And I said, I don't know. So I'm on leave from practicing law right now. I'm on inactive status. I'm still a lawyer, but I'm not with a firm anymore. And I'm hoping to continue to be a filmmaker. We'll see what happens. Yes?
Okay, I really appreciated the portions of the film that address the jury and how there's kind of this displacement of we appreciate as people in the country that the jury, that we are also distrustful of them making these decisions. And I noticed that you got to interview 2 jurors in the Levin case. And so I'm wondering what their perspective was, how their decision, when they were the ones that had the facts, and it was manipulated and turned around in a terrible way, and how that made them feel about their participation in the judicial process.
They felt ridiculed. They did not want to speak with me originally because they felt like, well, what are you doing? Are you bringing this back up? We've already been embarrassed by this. So they were very, very hesitant to speak with me. But what they did say, it was a unanimous verdict. There was never any discussion about whether or not she deserved something. It was only how much. Because they got so angry at McDonald's because they were callous about, what's 700 burns? We sell 1 billion cups of coffee. But what happened is that Reed Morgan, who was the lead counsel, had another McDonald's case, another burn case 6 years before, and his client's name was not on the list. And so in cross-examination, he said, now, Mr. So-and-so, where's Mrs. Swint? I represented her 6 years ago, and there was a claim. Where's her name on the list? They go, oh, well, so how many other people are not on this list? And that got them angry. Yeah. Yes, way in the back.
How did you find Colin and his family and the judge from Mississippi?
Oh, luck. I had the stories already. I wrote an outline in the summer of 2008. I knew what I wanted to show in the movie, but I didn't know who I was going to show it through. But when I went around the country raising money, I did the first storyline first, the McDonald's case, because if they didn't agree to participate, I didn't have a movie. So I did that first, and then we made, Cindy and I edited down a 26-minute trailer. It was like an extended trailer, and we used that to raise money to fund this film. And everywhere I went, I would tell people what the other storylines were, and then people would come up to me afterwards and say, oh, I know so-and-so, and it was through word of mouth that I found those 2 people. Jamie, on the other hand, I found because I got a grant from the Civil Justice Foundation, and she was being honored at the same time I was being honored, or the film was getting the grant, and I heard her speak, and I was like, oh, I have to have her in the film. And I showed her the 26-minute trailer, and she said I would be honored to be in this film. And Jamie, by the way, did not come this time, but she's 9 months pregnant with her 2nd child. She wasn't unable to fly, but she wanted desperately to be here, so she sends her wishes.
Have anyone seen it?
Oh yeah, they were all here. They were all here Monday for the premiere. Yeah, except for Jamie. But Jamie has seen her portion. I sent each of the sections to the families way when we did the rough cut, just to make sure that I didn't miss anything, that there wasn't anything inaccurate. So they all saw those. So they never saw any of the other portions, though. So on Monday, it was the first time they saw the film. It was very exciting. Yeah, down here.
Have you had any pushback from the U.S. Chambers side?
There's some blogging on the other side about how I'm hiding the fact that I'm a trial lawyer making this movie. Have I hidden that from you? That's about it. They haven't seen it yet. There was a review in the Hollywood Reporter that said, the trial lawyers will give me a standing ovation. Where are all of you trial lawyers?